We looked at this type of solving last time, and I thought we should look at what happens if we have something like this. Again, the directions would say solve where x is a real number, and we will have been given this. And since this is a square, an even number, this value, we can't have a negative value. It won't work. This has no solution. So this one we would say has no solution. And that's because a square can't equal a negative number. You can't square root. You can't do this in the real numbers. You cannot have square root negative 48 in the real numbers because that solution is an imaginary number. Now, you could have a different index. This is considered to be a 2, even though we don't write it. But if you had a 3 there, you could maybe do something, or a 5 there. If it was odd, you could probably do something. We don't normally write the square. It's considered to be there, but we don't put it. But if we do use a different one, 3, 4, 5, anything above 2, we will always include it, and it's called the index. If there was an index of a positive or of an odd number, we could then maybe do something with it. It would depend on the odd number. But the square over here tells us we can't do it. Now, what about if we have something that looks like x squared equals 24? Something that doesn't come out really nice. We can still do it. We follow the exact same rules as before. We're going to 24. We're going to square root both sides. And we're going to square root. And just like before, we have to add the plus minus. On this side, this is canceling that. So we end up with just the x, and it's equal to a plus minus square root of 24. The only issue is this answer is going to say simplify, and that's not simplified, okay? So one of the techniques to simplify, and the one that I'm the most fond of because it moves pretty quickly and doesn't take a lot of space up, is to utilize the factoring. So we're going to factor 24, and we're going to see what 24 is made of. And we start with our smallest number that goes into it, other than 1. So you're usually going to have 2, 3, 5. Don't do 4 because you would have found it with 2. So you're focused on the smallest numbers. In this case, 2 goes into it, so I start with 2. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 twice. I see that it's still even, so I'm going to go ahead and keep using 2. 2 goes into 12 6 times. And then again, I see that I can keep going with 2. And 2 goes in and I get 3. And nothing can go into 3 other than 1 and 3. So I'm done. Here's what I know out of this. This is 4, which is a perfect square. So I could rewrite this as still plus minus, and then I could write this as the square root of 4 times, And then the 2 times 3, which is just going to be 6, times 6. And doing that allows me to say, well, the square root of 4 is 2, so I can pull a 2 out, and then I would have plus or minus 2, and then the 6 is left still under there. I can't bring that out because there's no pairs to pull out, right? Some people look at it like I pulled out this pair, and that's what's here. I've seen that thought process, and that's okay. I guess as long as you understand what's happening. You've divided it up by its factors. 4 times 6 equals 24, and 4 is a perfect square, so I can pull the square root of 4 out. It's kind of like I'm separating this piece into the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. And the square root of 4 just becomes the 2. So then I'm left with the 6. And then, of course, we had the plus minus in front, so that stays. So again, x is equal to, and we could write it like this. The software should take this, assuming there's a plus minus button. If there isn't, you would write it like this. 2 square root 6, comma, 2 square root 6. So both the positive here and the negative version here. So both of these are the same answer, just written differently. And I put the little hook on my here. I do that only so I know where it ends and so I don't get confused. I've watched students over the years do these, and they do the square root symbol like this, and they just keep, that looks ugly. Let's fix that actually. So they do it where, and they don't know where it ends, and then they'll do, something like 24, and they'll want to say times, I don't know, a. So they'll just put the a there, but it looks like, well, maybe that a should be underneath there, and it really shouldn't. So I always keep my hook there so I know exactly where it ends. That's a preference. All right, I hope this helps.